I'm gonna look you in the eyes when I tell you this. I'm gonna try to look you in the eyes, but let's just move on. Hello, Enfielders. I'm not saying that in a derogatory way. I wanted to talk to you guys about some of the best free-to-play characters in Endfield today, because there are actually quite a few of them that are very, very strong. So I'm gonna do my best to go in detail on what makes these characters strong, and you can decide if you want to build them personally, but I will have more guides on how the characters work and their teams in the future. This is just supposed to be a general use, first look, I guess, at what characters you should be investing into if you want to get good bang for your buck. And keeping in mind that your buck is completely free and not paid at all. This video is sponsored by Arknights Endfield. You've heard of furries, but have you heard of scalies? This is Antal, and he is absolutely crazy. He's actually a 4-star character, and since the gacha in this game has you pulling a character guaranteed every single pull, odds are you're gonna get this guy maxed out within your first 20 to 30 pulls anyways. So you will be able to get max copies of this guy very easily, and he is absolutely fantastic. First off, his skill allows him to apply a debuff called Focus, and this debuff actually snowballs into a couple different mechanics. First off, enemies that have the debuff on it will get electric and heat susceptibility, meaning that they take extra damage from electric and heat damage. Now, Focus can only be on one enemy at any given time, which can create a couple hiccups if you're trying to use him in content with a ton of different enemies, but against bosses in particular, he's really great, and against enemies with higher HP or less enemies, he tends to be really, really strong. On top of that, enemies that have Focus on them, if they happen to get a physical status or an arts infliction, which basically just means any sort of elemental or physical debuff, that will trigger his combo skill and allow for a giant explosion of electric damage. But the even cooler part about this is that it actually allows you to add another stack of physical or arts infliction to the enemy. This means more damage overall, and that's just his skill and combo skill. And that's not even with his ultimate, which is actually also really crazy. What it's going to do is increase your allies' electric and heat damage by giving them an electric amp and a heat amp. Not to be confused with a heat lamp, which he probably also would appreciate. On top of that, he actually has some healing capabilities as well. Now, in my opinion, healing isn't even that big of a deal in this game, but extra healing is always nice. And if you go to his copies, you can actually see that he buffs even further beyond than his 0 potential self. With his first potential, he gets heat and electric amp. With his 5th potential, he actually gets an increase to the susceptibility debuff that he applies to enemies. And lastly, if the enemy with Focus is defeated, you get 15 skill points back. So overall, Antal is a debuffer that allows you to deal more heat and electro damage, and can actually add more stacks of whatever debuff infliction that you have. In total, at maximum mastery, you actually get up to 10% susceptibility for both elements, and on top of that, you get the extra 4% from his copies. On his ultimate, his Amplify can get up to 20% with an extra 2% from his copies as well. So that is 14 susceptibility, 22 amp, status reinflictions, and that's without even counting his endgame set, which is going to allow him to also increase your teammates' damage dealt whenever he applies amped or susceptibility. This is the Eternal Zero Night set, and by the time you're able to make it, this guy should be pretty dang leveled. On top of that, if you give him Stanza of Memorials, he'll be able to increase your operator's attack by 8% if they have a different element than him, which in Levitane's team, they definitely will. Absolutely crazy character. So as an example of an Antal team, you could play a full electric team with Perlica, Arknight, Antal, and Aviwena. I'm not gonna lie, I have no idea how to pronounce their name. The Money Girl. Basically, playing all these characters together will allow you to dish out not only a ton of electric damage, but you can also trigger plenty of combo skills, and Antal will be able to buff your whole team and debuff enemies. Not gonna claim this is the best team for him because there actually is a better one coming up, but I need to talk about Perlica first, which is gonna be the next best free-to-play character in my opinion. Okay, wait, actually, they're not like in order. It's not like she's the next best free-to-play. She's just the next one on the list of characters that I have. Anyways, Perlica is absolutely crazy. She's one of the first characters that you get in this game for absolutely free, and she is a 5-star character. Now, what makes Perlica so great is that she's able to actually trigger her combo skill very frequently and very easily, as well as force apply Electrify to enemies. Her skill applies electric infliction to enemies, which is a great second element to apply to enemies to get them electrified, because that will increase all of the arts damage you do, which is all elemental damage you do. On top of that, with her combo skill, it triggers whenever you perform any final strike, so any character on field using their last attack in their main combo will trigger Perlica's combo skill and forcibly inflict electrification, which will increase all of the arts damage that the enemy takes. Her cooldown does feel a bit long at 20 seconds, but when you're in combat, it's not too bad. Not unless you're like super min-max to the point where you're killing everything in less than 10 seconds. Now, Perlica also does get some more self buffs where she can increase the damage that she does against staggered enemies, and when she uses her combo skill, if you're hitting an enemy that's vulnerable, the chain will activate one more time, and this combos really well with Endmin. One thing I forgot to mention as well is that her ultimate multiplier is pretty dang good. And of course, all of that is without talking about her potentials, but if you do get potential 1, you can increase the duration of electrification, which is extending the debuff that you have on enemies, and on top of that, Perlica can also give herself some more attack, her skill electrification can last a bit longer, and her ultimate can get a huge bonus to its crit rate. So Perlica copies are great as well, not game-changing, not necessary, but she's very good as a free unit. And one example team I have for you guys actually has 3 free-to-play characters and 1 premium character, Levitane. Now, the reason I put Perlica in here is because this team will be able to inflict combustion and electrification, and Antal buffs all of that. Perlica's electrification will increase the damage that Levitane does with her normal attack combo, since all of her damage is fire damage, and overall everyone in this team can benefit from Antal, and Perlica is going to help enable them. Next, I'm going to talk about this character that looks suspiciously like Sweetly. Now, Akekuri is a character that I think everyone has been saying is really good since the betas, and she did get nerfed in the live version. However, she is still very, very strong, especially when you consider the fact that she is a 4-star character that can benefit most teams that she gets placed in. Akekuri is an SP regenerator. Now, SP is a very important part of this game because it allows you to actually use your skills, which is going to dish out more damage and allow you to trigger combos and effects. While her skill doesn't really do much except for apply heat infliction, her combo skill will trigger whenever an enemy gets staggered or hits a stagger node, and it'll recover some SP. On top of that, her ultimate will also recover a lot of SP. Now, her ult does cost a lot, but you can actually reduce that with the gear you can equip, and that's not all that the ultimate actually does, because when you go into Akekuri's potentials, if you look at her 3rd potential, she actually gives your entire team a 10% attack bonus whenever her ultimate is up. On top of that, with one of her passives, she can actually get the link buff for your team, which is going to allow the next skill or ultimate cast by your team to consume the link buff and deal a ton more damage. Basically, if you plan out your next attack after Akekuri uses her ultimate, it can do a whole lot of damage. And lastly, her combo skill SP gain can be improved with these other 2 passives that she has. In my opinion, one of the things that makes Akekuri pretty good is that by not using her skill, you're not really losing anything. So this means that you can slot her into any team because none of the skills that you actually have to use, like her combo and her ultimate, will apply any sort of arts infliction, which means that she won't mess with the priority of your arts inflictions on your other teams so long as you don't use her skill. Something that I forgot to mention in my first recording of this was that Akekuri's gear and weapon are very important. First off, by using the Frontier set, her combo skill gets a cooldown reduction, which is going to help her use it more frequently, but more importantly, after she recovers SP, the entire team will get 16% damage buff for 15 seconds. On top of that, if you have Thermite Cutter equipped on her, whenever she recovers SP or grants Link State with her ultimate, your entire team will get even more attack. So in total, Akekuri can grant you almost 2.5 skill uses with her ultimate at maximum mastery, a Link buff from her passive, 10% extra attack for your entire team with her ultimate and 3 copies, another 5% attack if you use Thermite Cutter, and lastly, an additional 16% damage for your entire team. And as a bonus, she can apply heat infliction, which makes her great with Levitane. Akekuri is a really safe bet on a character to put in your team if you're unsure of who to bring, and overall I highly recommend checking her out if you're looking for a new teammate. For Akekuri's team, I have put her all by herself. It's here where she will learn how to become the best support the world has ever seen. It's time to Endministrate. Yes, this is the Endministrator, and yes, they're actually really good so far at the beginning of the game. All right, the reason I specify the beginning of the game is because I always think that characters that can be main damage dealers or dish out a lot of damage could always fall off if they power creep later in the game, so I'm hesitant to recommend a main DPS. However, Endmin does actually function very well with basically every other physical character in the game and some of the non-physical characters as well. Endmin is a physical damage dealer with a lot of fun buffs and debuffs in their kit, and though their buffs aren't going to apply to everyone in the team, it is pretty funny to see, you know, the main character just absolutely clobbering enemies with rocks. Endmin's skill actually applies a crush effect, which if you don't know, it's a vulnerability on enemies. If the enemy already has vulnerability though, it'll deal massive physical damage instead and consume the vulnerability. Now, Endmin's combo skill is really easy to trigger and impales the enemy with cancer rocks, which is kind of fucked up, but we ball. This gets triggered whenever an ally uses a combo skill and deals damage with it, which is super easy, and it has a short cooldown of 16 seconds, and I think I just voice cracked there. The cancer rocks will be attached to enemies, and it will seal them in place where they won't be able to move. Then, if you apply physical status or vulnerability to them by using Endmin's skill or other character skills, it'll consume the Originian crystals and deal extra damage. And lastly, their ultimate is going to deal just a bunch of damage, and if the enemy does have Originium crystals, like if you just use the combo skill, it deals extra physical damage. Now, I need you to understand, this is a rank 1 ultimate. If you have the Originium crystals on, you're doing over 600% multiplier damage with their ultimate alone at rank 1. So this gets really crazy, and honestly, even at the beginning of the game, it hits pretty dang hard so long as you have the Originium crystals. On top of that, what makes Endmin a good DPS is that they're able to buff their own attack with their passive up to 30%, and on top of that, enemies that have the Originium crystals on them take bonus damage. So they will be getting more damage taken from physical damage, which makes Endmin a great pick for physical teams. Also, all of Endmin's potentials are completely free, though 3, 4, and 5 are not available yet. 1 and 2 are crazy. So the first one is going to make it so that whenever you use Endmin's skill to consume the Originium crystals, you actually get 50 SP back. So it's basically a skill for half off. And then the second potential is going to make it so that whenever Endmin buffs themselves with the 30% attack or the 15% at the lower passive level, all of your allies get the same buff but cut in half. So essentially, Endmin can buff your entire team with 15% attack, which is pretty crazy for a free-to-play unit. And if you can get over the fact that you can never see their face and you only see their mouth and this mask on their head, Endmin is pretty dang cool. But I really wish we could see their eyes. Now for Endmin's team, I went ahead and just made an Endmin, Chen, Akekuri, and Potter's Man team, and this one is, I don't know, I just feel like it flows pretty well. Physical damage got buffed in this game after CBT2. I'm not exactly sure how it works, but I do know that everyone feels like they are hitting way harder, and the physical effects seem to be much more detrimental to enemies. And in this team, you do have a lot of physical vulnerabilities you're going to be able to add, and Akekuri isn't really a detriment to this at all. She's just going to give you more skill points, but she is kind of a flex spot for your supports. You could also play Ardelia as well, which is really funny because Ardelia is the next character that I want to talk about that is completely free to play accessible, and you're absolutely gonna love her. Ardelia is a brand new free 6-star character that is a nature type corrosion applying healer. Now, if you don't know what corrosion does in this game, corrosion is essentially going to make it so enemies lose resistances to all elements, and it's going to improve every single team's damage. But the cool thing with Ardelia is that if you use her skill, you can remove corrosion from the enemy and apply a physical susceptibility and art susceptibility at the same time. The duration on the susceptibility is absolutely crazy at 30 seconds, and that's more than enough time to apply corrosion again to stack up the physical, arts, susceptibilities, and the corrosion at the exact same time. On top of that, her combo skill makes it so that when an ally uses a final strike on an enemy that has no stacks of vulnerability or arts infliction, she'll deal damage and apply corrosion to nearby enemies. And lastly, her ultimate does some damage, but it also combos with some other things in her kit. Now, Ardelia is a healer, and as I mentioned before, healers are a little overrated right now just because you're able to heal up your team with the items that you craft at your factory, but it is worth noting that you can be pretty comfortable, especially in the early game when you don't have those items, by running a healer, and Ardelia is absolutely great for that. On top of that, you can get a passive that improves her skill and makes it so that if there's an enemy nearby with corrosion, she'll immediately skill again. So Ardelia is an absolutely fantastic 6-star character. You don't even need potentials for her to be good, and honestly, it's kind of good because I don't think most of you guys are going to be pulling multiple 6-stars. Overall, she's just fantastic, and I highly recommend investing in her, especially in the early game. Now, there are 2 honorable mentions that I want to bring up in this video because even though they're not free characters, I do think they're really good in specific scenarios, and they are both 5 stars. The first one is Alesh, who I think is actually going to be a pretty slept-on character, but he basically enables the Ice archetype team to be very, very powerful. He's the gambler of Endfield. He gives SP back and helps solidify to set up for shatters. The way he does this is with his skill, where instead of applying 2 cryo arts and creating an arts burst, you'll actually just apply solidification to the target and recover SP. On top of that, his combo skill makes it so that when Originium crystals like from your MC are consumed, or when an arts reaction is consumed, he can combo and go fishing, I guess. His skill is a chance to hook a rare fish that will increase the damage dealt, but also give even more SP back. On top of that, his ultimate also grants SP and can apply cryo infliction. The percent chance of you getting the rare fin can actually go up with his passives, and Alesh can battery himself a fair bit with his other passive. So if you're going to be playing a cryo character like Last Rite, you can use the very easy to get 4-star Estella and the 5-star Alesh with 0 copies on him, and it will massively improve your experience with Last Rite and being able to get a lot of skill points back for her combo finisher and for other skills on your team. I just threw Akekuri in there because you don't actually have to apply heat infliction, but you can if you want. I think she just also makes SP even better. The other honorable mention that I had was Arknights, who's a 5-star electric character character, and she's really cool. I really like the look of this character. Arknight's really fun because her skill is just kind of like a regular skill. You can absorb electrification, so especially if Perlica applies that to enemies, you can just eat that up and deal some extra electric damage and recover SP. But what's really cool about her is her combo skill. Her combo skill triggers whenever an enemy suffers electrification or after electrification is consumed. So either by using her skill or by using Perlica's combo skill, it will automatically trigger Arknight's skill. And one of the cool things about Arknight is that she gets this SP back on her skill and her combo skill. One of the other cool things about Arknight is she feels very fast to play because the cooldown on her combo skill is only 3 seconds. While I don't think she's actually one of the best characters in the game, she is very fun to play, and so I wanted to include this little tidbit in here because I think a lot of you guys will enjoy playing her. Her ultimate can apply electric infliction to all enemies in her path, and you can forcibly apply electrification if they already have electric infliction on. So these have been the best free-to-play characters in Arknight's Endfield. Now, to be honest, the game's still pretty early on in its progression, and I wouldn't be surprised if this changed over time, but I hope this gives you guys a general idea of who you could start leveling up and who you could play on your teams. I, for one, am glad that the main character is strong and glad to have so many other characters that are easily accessible for free-to-play players, but mostly I'm just looking for a reason to play her. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll catch you next time. Subscribe for more Endfield content.